All right, so all we've done so far is actually start a virtual environment and create our Django project. So if I go into my virtual environment folder and I do a pip freeze, this is all we have. We have Django 1.6.5 installed. We have e-commerce as the project, and that's it. That's all we've done so far. We synced the database and made our main super user. And we see our database file right here, which it automatically created for us. I cleared everything out with Command K, and again, if we list out, we see our database, we have e-commerce and manage.py. If I change directories in here, I see that the Django project include lib bin. Perfect, that's what I want. So now let's actually open up Sublime Text, and I'm going to go file, file, new file. And then we're going to go to project, and we're going to save project as. And we're going to go into our virtual environment for e-commerce, and we're going to save it as e-commerce. And then we want to view the sidebar, so let's show the sidebar. Project, we're going to add a folder to project. And that folder, if we go to desktop, and then e-commerce, we're going to add e-commerce as the one of the folders that we're going to add to this project. All right. And now we can open up our settings.py, and we'll talk about this for a second, as well as our urls.py. So now we have it set up completely in Sublime Text. So if I actually close this out and go to project, open recent projects, it will actually open up that recent project that we just created, which is good. That's what we want to have. So let's actually talk about this for a second. First off to note is base dir or base directory. This gives us the path of where manage.py is. So in here we see e-commerce. This is the base directory for the Django project. So to grab anything in that base directory, you can actually use base dir, and it will show that directory there. OS it's a cool command, so you might want to look up ways to use OS, but we will use it a little bit in our projects as well. And then I'll just go down real quick. Secret key, you need to use it production. When you use it in production, make it secret. So just keep that in mind when you actually bring your projects out. Debug, this is debugging, so showing errors or not. That's going to be code errors and then template errors. Allowed hosts, so when we actually go live, we want to put the hosting websites that would be in here, so our domains, so like codingforentrepreneurs.com as a string, so like, if we were doing that, like that, and then any other website that you'd want in there. Installed apps, we're going to be working with this a lot, so we will add installed apps and subtract them, and apps are basically used for one function. The first one you'll see is this admin, django.contrib.admin. This is pretty cool. We'll actually take a look at that in a second. But we also have something called sessions and messages. These things are also very important, and we will use that. Auth would be like we did user login and log out. So auth manages all that stuff. Middleware classes. So what middleware does is in between requests. So if you go to any web page, that's called a request, right? So in between showing that web page and somebody clicking to go there, it's like fractions of seconds. It will actually run through all of these things. So you can actually get to a point where you can have code in between your requests. It's going to be a little bit advanced, so we're not actually going to cover it in this tutorial series, but it is something that's good to know about. Root URL conf, so root URL configuration. So if we look at urls.py, this is really the backbone of how your site is organized. So URLs is how any individual URL for your project will handle the request. So like in this case, see how it says /admin? It says include site URLs. So what this is doing is telling the browser, or it's grabbing from the browser what the user's URL is or what website they're visiting, and then it's telling the reflected views for that URL. So let's actually see what I mean in real time. I'm going to open up terminal, change into the e-commerce project for Django, and then we'll do python manage.py, run server. All right, so now that we have this server running, we can actually go here and we press enter. So what we see here is it says it worked, and then it will say you don't have any work yet. Now you have to start an app, and then also it says you haven't configured any URLs, right? So right away, our first URL, so this is a URL, our first one is saying we don't have any configured. Now if we go to /admin, we actually will see the Django admin. The CSS might be all kind of messed up for you, but that's okay. But that's what this is, right? So this is actually handling that URL. So if we changed it to like DJ admin and like Django admin, not like disc jockey, and we did DJ admin, that actually changes that URL, which is kind of cool. So we will go into that more later, but it's just nice to know. And then looking down on settings some more, this is the application that's actually going to be served. We're not going to really talk about this a whole lot, so you can kind of ignore that one for now. Databases, this is literally our database. So whatever database we end up using, every once in a while your database might have some issues or something like that, and you might want to just delete that database completely. So you look for the file, in this case it's db.sqlite3, and since we're just learning, you could just go in here and delete it. And all that does is it just takes away everything that we had installed. So doing python manage.py syncdb will allow us to reinstall everything as we see here. So if you ever run into any errors with like a table not existing or something like that and you just don't know what it is, this might be a good thing to just jump and try out, because since we're testing, we're not using real live data at this point because we're learning, we can delete the database 1,000 times. Now, of course, there will be a time where you can't just delete the database because you need that information, but we're not even close to that yet. So let's just say, yes, we want to create another one, and jmitchell3, you're going to have to go through all this again. That's okay, because it will get you used to doing it. But I still do this to this day. If I'm having trouble with the database of some kind and I just don't know how to solve it, the fastest and easiest way to solve it is to delete the entire database. And once we get to a point where we're using a Python package called South, there will be folders in each app called migrations. So if you were going to delete your database, you would want to delete the folders called migrations as well. That's just an early warning for you when we get to the point of South, because something might be wrong with that. Anyways, let's continue on. We've got our language code, our time zone. So this is a universal time zone, and you can go ahead and Google different time zones or look up the Wikipedia for it. Same with language codes. Those are pretty standard. And this stuff, we don't have to worry about that for now. So, and then static files, so like where we're going to actually, what URL is going to be for our static files. Now, this doesn't set where we're going to store our static files, but it shows how we're going to actually access them, and we'll get to that too. So that's pretty much it. If we look at our other files here, we have init .py or underscore init .py. I will refer to it as init.py. All this is doing is making this folder, e-commerce, initialized as a Python folder. So the whole project will recognize e-commerce as a Python folder. That's it. So if you deleted this, we would run into some issues. And if you notice, if you open it up, it's empty. There's nothing in there because we don't have to worry about it. So let's close it. WSGI. This again is about deployment, and it's saying, look, it's calling the application. In this case, it's basically setting the Django application as the one that we're using, so e-commerce, so this folder right here, .settings. So that's the configuration folder, the one I'm pressing up and down on. And then it basically just sets the application to work with that, and it will run correctly that way. So again, our database, if you open it up, you see all this stuff. It's not really that easy to read in Sublime Text. There are other ways to read it, but it gets really technical, so we're just going to stick away from that at this point because you don't. It's not very often that you'll have to actually jump in and read it. But if you do want to make changes and you don't want to just delete the database, you can look up how to open SQLite 3 and all that. I'm sure there's something out there that would help you with that. Or you can ask me a question. That's cool too. And then manage.py. This is, again, using our Python stuff. So it's just a command that we use for everything. As you notice, it's also using ecommerce.settings. So if you, for whatever reason, changed your configuration folder, you'd want to change everywhere it says ecommerce.settings to whatever that configuration folder is. All right, so now we can actually start building some more. We are doing a lot of kind of learning and understanding of how this project's working, but it's really important to have a better idea of this stuff, so then down the line, things are just a little bit more clear. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions at this point. Otherwise, let's continue on.